Welcome to Hate to Wait, where two lifelong dieters talk about their current struggles with weight loss. Diets, we've tried them all. We are not doctors. We don't play them on TV or on this podcast. Join our journey because misery loves company.
Hello, Emily.
Hi, John. And hi, Harriet.
Hello.
We have Harriet here. We've been talking about you for, weeks. Well, probably since the start of the show. I keep weaving your name in and out. Harriet,
I hope it's all bad, Emily. I hope it's all bad.
Well, I lost 40 pounds last year, so it was bad for those 40 pounds. So, but Harriet was my eating coach, and she helped me so much. So welcome to the show, Harriet. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited. I've been thinking about this actually for 2 days now, because if anybody needs an eating coach, it really is me. And I thought to myself, I could be an eating coach, but really on the opposite end of the spectrum. I'd be like, you can have one more taco. You can eat that. This is how you do it. I'm that kind of an eating coach. I think I really I need someone to help me not be that kind of eating coach. So could you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah, so it is The Eating Coach, and it's been going I had my 100th episode this week, which is very exciting. So it's different from a lot of approaches to do with helping you change how you eat. For example, and some of what I might say, I'm just going to be upfront with you, it might be quite challenging for everyone listening because I don't focus on shedding weight. That could be a result of what happens, but I very much focus on behavior. So on the podcast, I have episodes, for example, is food addiction really a thing? I've got one called the Failure Olympics, which is just about embracing failure and having fun with it in order to stop it being the enemy and make it quite useful. I've just got a whole range of things, and it's mostly a solo show. I've had a couple of interviews, but it's mostly me and my ideas there. So that's my podcast.
It is wonderful. One of my favorite parts is the stupid idea of the week, which is in the very beginning. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I wanted to have some fun because and there is a lot of misery. I had an awful lot of misery. I had almost 3 decades of compulsive eating, but I thought it would be really fun to actually make some of this fun and just lambast the ridiculous ideas. So one of them, actually, you just talking about weigh-ins and things like that, was the calories wine glass. The calories wine glass. It's this. I saw it in one of these magazines. They have quirky presents. So it's a third of the size of a bottle of wine. It's enormous. And then you've got 3 measures. So one is like 125 milliliters. One is 250. And then the top is lost count. Who cares? and this idea is like, we just want to say, it's all right. May as well be hung for a sheep as well as a lamb sort of thing. And it's a really stupid idea. So it's just all these different ideas. It's not just diets. For example, one of my stupid ideas is describing the ideal. So when someone say, Harriet, what do you need? What do you need to, stop binge eating? An answer that I hear all the time is people say things like perseverance, patience, self-love. But when I was compulsive, I had no self-love. I loathed myself and I felt inadequate because I couldn't just love myself. And for me, it was much more about being neutral, being curious, and experimentation. So there's an awful lot of hot air spoken in this world, which I'm sure we all know. And I just wanted to have a bit of fun with it because you need to be light, even about the difficult things in life.
I think so. I mean, that's what this podcast basically is us trying different things and me failing.
It's not always you failing, John. John's done so well.
Well, it feels, but though, I know that. But it still feels like failing because every day is a different battle. And that's the hardest part. And then I think we are our toughest critics, trying to get out of that mindset and then trying to just put days together, which is the hardest part. So I don't know how you wanted to do this, Emily. Like, all right, maybe I could do it this way. Emily, when you went to Harriet, why did you go?
I forget how we met. I think, we had a mutual friend with Heather Welch, and we met that way.
Through podcasting, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was through podcasting. And then when you said what you did and I started listening to your podcast while I was walking around the mall, I was like, "Oh, I love this. This is like the type of woman that I want to meet with." So what and we just kind of got into a conversation and it sort of led into me working with you. But what's your process when somebody comes to you for coaching? What's usually their breakdown point of that's it, I need a coach? What do you see the most?
Well, the reason people come to me is they've just reached a point where they're in an awful lot of pain. I think it's one thing to listen to a podcast, and I went past 100,000 downloads the other week, which makes you go, yeah, I'm amazing. But in actual fact, the number of people who will actually come to you and they're willing to open themselves up and see a coach is a lot less than 100,000. I'll tell you, a lot less. So they are in a lot of pain, and they've reached a point where they are willing to do something about it. And I'm very open with them. I was talking to one woman today, a new client, and I said, I want to be clear with you that this is work. So that's the answer to the first question. And so my process, I was saying before, I don't know if we were recording them, but it's a focus on behavior rather than weight. It's not weight loss coaching, but that obviously can be a result. And that is for many of my clients a result. Sorry, I just need a sip of tea.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
One of the things I wanted to mention was you're different from a dietitian. So I don't want anybody to think that if they come to you, you're going to just, okay, here's your meal plan.
Yeah,
This is what you buy at the grocery store. This is what you do every day. And that was one of the nice things about coming to you, was knowing that I could lose those expectations of having this structured theme for me. So can you talk a little bit more about how you're different from a dietitian?
Yes, I don't know a great deal about the profession of being a dietitian, but as I understand it, the difference really is they focus on information. So they would have a really vast, really detailed knowledge of the whole of the world of nutrition. I don't. In my training, we did do some things on nutrition, but everything I know about nutrition is about, for example, how sugar will hijack your system. And people think, oh, I feel so guilty because I can't resist it. But actually, the sugar has hijacked your brain chemistry. I can tell you all the things that gluten can do to you. And I can tell you what foods will really ease off your cravings and what foods will actually reduce your urges to binge eat. So I've got a very narrow nutritional knowledge. What I can do that I think a dietitian can't necessarily do is implementation. So when someone is standing there in the supermarket and their hand is reaching out for the junk and they're like, I hate myself, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I can help them and get them to take their hand back and do it without feeling bad about themselves, without needing a drill sergeant. So yeah, it's about helping people do the right actions in spite of their resistance, and then sort of investigate their resistance, but be neutral. Like John, when you said, I fail, and I felt your whole being just go, oh. And I would say, no, not at all. What about if you saw every day as an experiment? Let's see how today goes. The great thing about an experiment is you can't fail or succeed at an experiment. It can only give you data. And that data may be data that is difficult for you, but it's better than failing. I believe that so many people are taking on strategies which don't work for them, which aren't suited for them. And because they don't work, it's much more like a marriage which goes sour. But the people think that it's all their fault, you know.
So for me, one of the things that I notice is that since I live alone, my behavior is much better when I'm with someone, because at that point I kind of am putting on an act. When I get into trouble, my biggest trouble is when I'm by myself, because I do the look left, look right. Right. No one will know. And then, so I guess my first question to you would be, is there such thing as food addiction? Is there such thing as being addicted to, and I don't want to say because everybody needs food, but is there addiction to like sugary foods or carbohydrates? Is there a carbohydrate sugar addiction? Is that a thing?
Okay. What I'm going to say to you is my personal professional opinion. This is very controversial because scientists will argue till the cows come home about this. Me personally, I do not believe that it is in any way, shape or form a good idea to talk about food addiction, because whereas somebody who's addicted to alcohol, they can live their life without alcohol. But food, we all need to be alive. So actually labeling the thing which keeps you alive as addictive is incredibly conflicted. Now, things like sugar, I think it was the British, I don't even know, some British authority basically said it's not addictive. But when I was addicted to sugar, I had a problem with it. If I was in even mild stress, I would get in my car, I would drive 5 minutes to the supermarket. I'd go and get the family pack of dessert. I'd drive to the end of the car park where no one was there, because obviously everyone was looking at me, weren't they? And I'd eat it all in 2 minutes. Now, that is addictive, compulsive behavior. So food, I don't think you should label food as addictive, but to me, yes, some foods are definitely addictive. If it works for you to say that food is addictive, use it. If that phrase is too loaded and makes you feel like too much of a victim with no power to change it, then don't use it. That's what I'd say about that.
Okay, so I mean, I understand that because listen, we all have to drink, but we don't have to drink alcohol. In my refrigerator, there's 8 beers in my 8. There's 12 beers in my refrigerator that other people have put in there since when they came over to my house. They've been in there. I have no compulsion to touch them. I don't ever say, you know what, I would like to have one of those beers. But if anybody left a container of ice cream or something like that, it would scream to me until it was all gone. Although we do eat food, there are certain foods for some reason that we cannot say no to. And if it's there, we'll eat it until it's gone. So I understand you can't say there's a food addiction, but there are some, I guess, foods that will cause compulsion and overeating, and not eating to survive, but more eating to comfort. And I think that's where I'm at.
I don't believe, I'm sorry, I used to be a languages teacher and I get very hung up on words, but food can't cause compulsion or addiction. Well, in fact, can you have a relationship with food? I mean, you go back and listen to my podcast. I've probably said it hundreds of times, improve your relationship with food. But actually, can you have a relationship with an inanimate object? It's more about how you're mediating your relationship with yourself via food. So, for example, a lot of my clients will have issues and they are managing their issues through food. So I wrote some down actually here. Food has got all these meanings for people. So, for example, food can symbolize love to some people. Excess weight can symbolize protection. So this can be very, very difficult because, and this was me, it was my protective fat suit. Yep. So on one hand, people think I want to lose all this weight and I hate this excess weight. But underneath that, on an unconscious level, they don't feel safe. They might have had trauma, or it might just be, you know, the world that we live in. It's, you put on the news, it's like watching, you know, a horror show half the time. And people, I think, are in a state of stress that they don't really accept. And I think a lot of people don't actually feel very safe. So the thing about our primitive mind, I call it cave brain. It knows the thing. This is the thing. In nature, the bigger you are, the safer you are. And that was definitely what was going on with me for years and years and years. And I found when I started to shed weight, it was really uncomfortable for a while. And I'd started to learn all this and I knew what was going on. And I thought, right, I just have to prove to myself, prove to that cave brain that it's actually safe here to shed this weight. And that was it wasn't easy, but what an incredible adventure that was, because you learn so much about yourself and you actually realize, like, I don't watch, there's a lot of horror. I wouldn't watch horror, but there's a lot of thrillers that people think are like perfectly fine to watch. I wouldn't watch them now because they make me feel, I wouldn't say unsafe, but they put me in that stress response where you're thinking, am I safe? And that has a big effect on people's weight, I think, that people don't understand.
That happens with me, especially when I lost a lot of weight in college. And then I started getting attention I had never gotten before in my life. And I didn't know how to handle it. And I wasn't comfortable with it. And I look back at some of those parties I went to, and just because, I was skinny, let me try to fit into this new personality that it felt like people wanted me to have because I had lost weight. Yeah. And then as the pounds crept back on after college, I felt safer and more secure and more comfortable. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I was still yelling at myself, how can you gain this weight back? You worked so hard. And it was like a war in my brain all the time.
Yeah.
And working with you, that was, I think, one of the first 1 or 2 meetings we talked about just all the things in my life that I didn't think had to do with weight, but they did. Like we went to my parents and how they ate, and it was just so refreshing. And this is something that can you talk a little bit about your training? I felt like I was going to a psychiatrist every single week.
Dr. Morris.
Yeah.
I will be speaking at the WHO. Yeah, well, how I came to be an eating coach is, yes, when I turned 40, I decided I got it's really funny. I remember I was 38, my brother turned 40, and my brother was a really big guy, and he started running marathons. And then my sister-in-law, she's a bit like a librarian, she did a parachute jump, and I'm like, what's up with turning 40? This is weird. It's only an age. And then when I got to about 39 3/4, I'm like, oh, I'm going to die one day. Oh dear. So I decided my thing for 40 was I don't want to be fat and 40, but also I don't want to be a compulsive eater. That was so important to me. I want to decode this compulsive eating. So I had some hypnotherapy and it worked for a little bit. Then it stopped working. But I thought, wow, I've discovered there's something going on in my subconscious mind here. I think I'll do a bit of journaling and a bit of relaxation exercises. And then I gave up sugar, and I started to understand that there was a lot going on with my mind, and that my mind could affect how I ate rather than just following a cookie cutter approach of someone else's diet. And then I discovered it's the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. They are who I trained with. And Mark David, who he basically founded that, he is a very eminent nutritionist, but he basically created the whole field of eating psychology. And that everything I've just said to you about not feeling safe and the excess weight I got from him. But a lot of it was my own experience. And then I remember the time I thought, I've got to try this out on other people and see if this helps. And I came up with all these cravings busters, which are ways to take your hand away when you're in the supermarket and divert your attention and walk away just for 5 minutes. This is the thing. Instead of going, I must never have, like you said, the ice cream, you just see if you can get yourself to do that for 5 minutes. And in that, you've broken the pattern, and you can feel better about yourself. And I found that stopped me going for the junk. And I started telling one of my friends, and I remember she rang me up and said, Harriet, I've lost 2 pounds, she said. And then I was in the supermarket and I saw this muffin and I walked right past it. And I thought, yeah, I think I can do this. It was a very small sample, And then, I started coaching when I was still training, but yeah, that's it. But I learned so much from my clients because they're all unique, and it is very one-to-one. It's the opposite of the big diet clubs. I never tell my clients what to do. I don't give them a food program. We've got no weigh-ins at all. I think they're counterproductive, to be honest. Like regular weigh-ins, really counterproductive. And I do check-ins with them every day. So it's very, very high-level support, I think. The kind of people who come to me need that.
Yeah. And the daily check-ins, that was fun. We did it through Facebook Messenger, and she would come in and she had me set one goal for that day. And she would check in to make sure I did it. And it was like, we talk about, don't break the chain. I was like, I have to answer to Harriet. If I don't do this, I have to answer to Harriet. And it really kept me in line. It was amazing.
Yeah, now there's an app called Voxer. So one of my clients is voice messages. I'm like, good morning, it's Harriet. Check in when you've done your meditation. And it's great.
All right. So I'm a prime candidate for your coaching because I'm 57 and I've been dealing with this now for almost 40 years. And there's sometimes I get a hold of it and there's sometimes that I can't get a hold of it. And I think I've tried everything. I've tried the hypnotherapy. It didn't work for me. I've went to therapists. It didn't work for me. I've been through every diet crazy plan. At one time, 3 years ago, I lost 120 pounds. And then what happened was it really fueled my binge eating. And I was constantly binge eating. And I went to somebody and they said, well, if you're having problems with binge eating, you can't diet, which I said, okay, I'll stop dieting. And then I put it all back on again. So this is why we started this podcast, Emily and I, because I figured I can't do this by myself. and we've had success early. But right now, I feel that I'm floundering here, and I can tell by just the fact of the weighing in and, having issues. So if somebody like me, because the reason we do this podcast, for me, one of the reasons I do this podcast is if I can find one person that listens to this and decides to take action before they're 57 and gets back their life, because to be honest with you right now, my life is living me. I'm not living my life. So that's why I do this. So what would be your suggestion to someone, like, how can you help them? What would be your, not approach, but would they contact you? How would you start? What would that all look like?
The page about my coaching is theshiftinside.com/coaching, or I think the best thing would be to listen to the Eating Coach podcast, because then you get an idea of my approach. Like, as I say, I'm not for everyone. If somebody wants somebody who's going to do a check-in, is going to be, tell me, have you lost any weight this week? I am not the girl for you. But it's about getting curious about the reasons. When you said, "Oh, I'm a failure," I would say that behind that there's something else going on. There's some reason you've got that belief there, and it's serving some purpose, and we don't know what it is. So part of the work is, it's investigating, and it might be talking, like with Emily, we spoke about her history and this sort of thing. So part of it
I'm blaming you. It's all you, Mom, if you're listening. Just saying.
There is, I have to say, with women, there's a lot of thing with their mothers, actually. There's that. And then there's partly the behavioural thing. So it's like, what do you do, like when you're in the supermarket and your hand's reaching out for the ice cream? What do you do when someone comes round and brings you some ice cream and you don't want to offend them? This is a big thing, is like people, you live alone, but people who live with other people, and their partner insists on bringing the junk in, even though they know it's a problem for them. I am amazed at how often I have to have these conversations with, are we going to talk to your partner about this? Then there's some subconscious work I do. I'm not a hypnotherapist. I would never say that. But for example, there are audios that you can listen to. And in fact, on I did a giveaway on the episode 100. And there's a relaxation audio, but it's actually installing a belief in people. So actually, I'll just give you the link for that. It's theshiftinside.com/fish tank. And that is installing a belief in people that would counter your "I'm a failure" sort of idea. So it's partly behavioral. Then there's also, like I say, there's some nutritional things. It might be that your body is craving something that would reduce your desire for sugar, for example. Certainly with Emily, we did that, didn't we? We looked at what you're eating, especially in the first half of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, and I can only speak for myself, most of the things that I deal with and the issues I have with eating, I would say would be the same issues that people would have with alcohol or even drugs, because, it's the time where, for me, it's a internal body thing. It's one of the reasons why I wouldn't go for weight loss surgery, because I knew that what the issue for my weight gain was not food. And if you took that away from me, what would I turn to if I didn't have that? And nobody would address that for me. So then I pulled out of it, because I didn't want to be one of those people, the 2% of the people that would try to eat and push it and eat through that surgery, because I knew it wasn't the fact that I just eat too much. I know there was a reason for eating too much.
Yeah. So we would sort of investigate that. But also, it's a case of, we have this feel-good factory in our brain, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, all that. It's sitting there. It's open for business 24/7. But what people think is, I the only way I can feel good is to get it from chocolate. And it's like, actually, that's completely hijacked it, because what happens with sugar, for example, I call it the sugar roller coaster. So you have a thought, might be a negative thought, or you might see some chocolate, trigger dopamine. And dopamine is the neurochemical that, like, let me go and get it. It gives you the motivation. You eat it, then the roller coaster will go right up to the top, the high point of the roller coaster. You've got loads of serotonin. You are feeling fantastic. It's the safe, secure thing. And if you think about the link, when I was saying about having a protective fat suit on where you don't feel safe, chocolate, oh, great, just for 2 minutes, I feel fantastic. But then it's too much. You haven't had the sugar with fiber. In nature, sugar always comes wrapped up in in fiber, and the fiber slows down the release of the glucose into the bloodstream. So Robert Lustig, who's Mr. World Authority on sugar, I do like him, although he does talk about having a war on sugar. And it's like, you can't have a war on an inanimate object, Robert. Have a war on, Monsanto or McDonald's, please, but not sugar.
You've never seen me tackle tapioca pudding. I win those wars every time.
So you get to the top, and then obviously you've had an insulin rush, then it all drops, and then you feel awful. But guess what? You can go and get some more, and then you go round, you're looping the loop and looping the loop. So that's how a lot of people are using their feel-good factory, but it's all done wrong. So you can retrain yourself to go and get those happy neurochemicals, use that feel-good factory in ways that don't have a price tag. So, for example, John, do you like chilies?
The peppers, you mean?
Well,
over here, is that what they are? Because I know they're over there, they're different than they are over here on this side of the pond. Mm. So what are chilies? I've
seen like chili peppers. Chilies are like tiny little things, and they're very, very spicy. They're like set your mouth on fire. That's what I call them.
Yeah, it has to be a certain amount of fire. I can't handle too hot, but yes, I do like spicy stuff. So yes.
So the weird thing is that when we exercise, we produce endorphins, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. So endorphins make you feel good. That's the high you get from exercising. It's actually, for some reason, endorphins are there to kill pain. So I suppose it's if we're running away from the tiger and we catch our leg on a branch or something. This is when we're cave dwellers and we're in pain. The exercise will numb out the pain. But for some reason, and do not ask me why, fresh chilies create loads of endorphins in your brain. So you can get a feel-good rush from the chilies. But this is something that's really interesting. What I've noticed is that when you're using this feel-good factory in a healthy way, there's no price tag, but you always have to do some work to get the good feeling. So with the exercise, you actually have to do the work to do the exercise to get the good feeling. Oxytocin, for example, that's the bonding one. You have to connect with somebody and have the hug. You have to, that's kind of work, depending on if you have enough people to hug or whatever. To get serotonin naturally, you have to cook a proper meal or maybe get a promotion at work. There's always work to do. And then there's no price tag. And the chilies, the work in eating the chilies is that they taste awful. I used to be a real wimp, and then I discovered this. So I started eating them in order to, that's my nature really, is that because I lived so long on this, I'm so miserable, I hate myself, but I can have pleasure for a little bit and then I'll come down, I'll go up. And my nature is actually a little bit, I'm quite bubbly and I can go up and down a little bit. So I'm sort of used to that, the up and down of the chilies. But that's a way anybody can experience this feel-good factory and understand that you have to do a bit of work, but there's no price tag. When you don't do the work, as in you just reach for the junk, put it in, you have to pay the price. There's just a really interesting pattern that I've noticed with these things.
So we have a question from Jason. He says, as a type 2 diabetic, I'm constantly battling with keeping my sugar and A1C low. Whole30 seems to work best for me in getting low numbers, but it's not always a way to consistently live with 2 kids and a job, and sometimes involves heavy travel. So what balance can you see in a Whole30-ish kind of eating? The one thing I'm not doing is working out, which I've experienced brings my sugar levels down considerably. How do you balance that food and lack of working out? Just so many directions to go with.
I don't take a whole lot of notice of here's a new kind of diet. Mm-hmm. I'm too busy. I'm too busy learning about the stuff I told you. So I don't actually know what Whole30 is.
It's usually 30 days.
It's weird about 30. Like they say, okay, it's the Whole30. Well, what do you do with the other 300 and something days, 334 days of the year?
Yeah, this is
okay. It's clean eating plan designed to clean up your eating habits by cutting out foods that might be having a negative effect on your health, making you feel crappy. Some that are super hard to give up, like dairy, sugar, grains, legumes, alcohol.
Yeah, that's sorry. I've been a bit sidetracked by the idea. Clean eating is a very I did an episode on clean eating. Yeah, because it's the idea that you have to be perfect, and if you're not perfect, then you're dirty. And I like the idea of it's just very low. Obviously, the meaning that we won't talk about, but it's the idea of being spiritually pure and clean is just, I don't like talking about food as being pure or clean, because the best, what I found is with my clients is that, like, for example, I help people get off sugar, but I'm not 100% sugar free. I'll have mayonnaise and I'll have orange juice, and it's those like chocolate, and it's all the junk that I've managed to wean myself off. But every single one of my clients has got to a point where they can have a little bit of that sometimes. And I find that is amazing. And people they're not feeling like they're battling. When you have something that's so extreme and so perfectionist, people will rebel against it, because we are wired to seek pleasure, and to seek pleasure from food. And what a lot of these programs are doing is denying that, and denying a little bit of something that may not be perfect for you, but actually is much more sustainable. So sorry, I've gone on a rant there.
I think that's wonderful, because I know as soon as I was reading the question, you were talking about how you don't really talk about diets and get into that. I think the main thing to pull out from that is somebody doing one of those diets, but not necessarily incorporating movement or exercise. What are your feelings on that? Because I know you're not going to say, well, do the diet. It'll do all the work for you.
I can't really speak as regards diabetes. I'm not an expert on type 2 diabetes at all. I think actually that the exercise, what I've found is that if you can use exercise, not in terms of it'll burn this many calories, but exercise as a way to tap into that feel-good factory, that will actually help people go through the challenge.
That'll release the endorphins, and that's what people are kind of going for, the endorphins and the serotonin. Yeah. I'm not sure which one, because all the brain chemicals, and I just throw them out.
Exercise is endorphins, and what gives you serotonin is when you get a job promotion, or you say you organised a charity event, that would give you some serotonin. So serotonin is about feeling safe and secure, and like you're contributing to the tribe. I can't obviously talk about in terms of exercise and diabetes, but I would say that it's very important to understand that you will do a lot better at sustaining getting off junk food if you can tap into the other sources, the other ways to get those neurochemicals going. But it also understanding that it takes time to get to the point where, I want to go to the gym for an hour and a half today, or find a form of exercise that he likes. Is it Jason?
Yeah.
It's really interesting. There's a lot of people go, I have to go to the gym and I have to work. And actually, for me now, I like that, because I've had some mobility issues in the last year, and doing a very light workout with weights, but making it quite long, is really good for my hips and my joints. So I'm sold. But for a long time, I hated the gym, and also because I didn't like the gyms that I went to. It was my feeling of like not feeling safe. But where I am now, it's really funny. The gym, I'm nearly 48. Everyone in the gym is about 25 or 30 years younger than me, and it's really all these millennials. They never look at you. They're doing their own thing, and it's great, because I can be the old lady at the back who's just doing 5 kilos really slowly. But it's really important to find a way to enjoy exercise. And I actually did an episode called Temptation Bundling, where what you do, they did this research about the Hunger Games. They wanted to motivate people to go to the gym more. So half of the group, they just gave them some information on motivation. The other group, they gave them an audio book of the Hunger Games, because apparently it's really addictive. And they said, right, you can listen to this, but only when you're at the gym. And those people exercised more because they wanted to listen to the Hunger Games. So it's the idea of, you find something you really want to do, but you only allow yourself something to listen to or maybe watch. Only do it while you are doing the thing that you don't want to do so much, which is go to the gym. But do you prefer swimming? Do you prefer walking in nature? Things like this. But you can retrain yourself to enjoy exercise. It's just a case of just keep doing it again and again.
See, Jason has a unique problem. I know Jason, he's a friend of mine. First of all, he travels a lot for his work, and he has young children. And, he's in it. He's in the thick of life where, the kids, it's very hard to train children to eat. I would say, I don't want to say the word clean, but clean, because that's the only word I know right now.
Better than junk.
Better than junk. Less processed food. Kids want
better.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
My kids,
I'll allow that.
Yeah, my kids would eat macaroni and cheese, chicken nuggets, and French fries, and maybe spaghetti if the sauce wasn't too spicy. I mean, and they lived on, and they still live on that now. If we go out to eat, and they're 18, well, it's going to be 21, 19, and my twins just turned 17, and they still have a very, very limited palate. And when you just want them to eat, and you're just you throw some extra chicken nuggets on there so you eat, and you're going through that whole thing, and he's in the thick of it right now. And, my heart breaks for him because I've been through that portion of my life right now. All I can tell him is it gets better.
And I posted the video in the Facebook group of me doing yoga yesterday and my kid just climbing all over me, not even caring.
Sure, yeah.
And the thing, it's funny, but at the same time, sometimes you just want those 20 minutes of like, no, I need to focus fully on working out. And it's tough. It's very tough to find that time.
This is why it's really good. One of my favorite words is imperfectionism. This is why it's really good to be imperfectionist. So like I'll tell you, in the last year, I've had some mobility issues and I'm now approaching the change and I've put some weight on. And so if I was a weight loss coach doing the Weight Loss Coach podcast, that would be really difficult for me. But because I'm an eating coach, I can say I did an episode on intermittent fasting because that was one of my experiments. I got obsessed with my mobility for a while. That was one of my episodes. And I said, yeah, I've put a bit of weight on. And I think that's much more useful to my listeners than to say, oh, I pretend I'm perfect, because it's about not being perfect and about just managing what you can,
Yeah, I mean, as someone that's morbidly obese, categorized as morbidly obese, for me, I'm looking for something that'll work. And then I've realized that I have a insulin resistance situation. So the intermittent fasting the science of it seems to work for me. It makes sense to me. But the issue is, especially for what I do, is my lifestyle is not, I don't have a rigid lifestyle. My lifestyle is very fluid. Like I do things at different hours. I don't really have a routine. And I think when you don't have a routine, it's very hard to fall back into these old behaviors that kind of, because you're exhausted. You've stayed up because you had to do a project and you stayed up almost all night. And, 57, I could do that when I was 27, but 57, it really takes a toll on me. So the next day, I'm trying to keep up, and it's sugar and anything that, you're trying to get your energy level back up, where really the only thing that's actually going to work is sleep and rest. To me, it seems like you're gaming the system with food, caffeine, and all those other all those other things that will help you along. But to be honest with you, it really doesn't help.
Gaming the system. What an absolutely brilliant. Can I steal that, please, John?
You can have it. Yes.
You might end up with some free coaching because that's so brilliant. As you get older, there's a bit of acceptance going on. But also I did mention this before, but it's dealing with stress and maybe transforming stress, things that are difficult for you. How can they be opportunities? A lot of people, it's relationships, though maybe somebody, it's their marriage or it's their boss or something like this. And so they're eating instead of dealing with this in the most powerful way. So I'm like, what a fantastic opportunity. Instead of getting food to manage it, let's go straight to the source. Let's see how you can turn this problem into an opportunity. Food is the doorway. It's the solution, just in disguise.
We have one more question from the chat we're going to take because we're running pretty long today. We want to get to Winning Wednesdays and our weigh-in. So we have Erica. She says, one of my problems is feeding myself after the kids go to bed as a means of giving to myself at a time of day when I'm tired, just feeling like collapsing in front of the TV. How would she reassociate that time? And I mean, this is right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, this is the reward. I've done great all day. I need a reward. I want to be good to myself. Yeah. Where is that sweet thing that makes me just sit there and go, oh.
Well, the nice thing is she already knows to ask that question of how would I reassociate that time?
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, yes, especially a lot of women, because they're running around. And I remember I did a little poll with some of my other friends who are working mums. And I said, do you remember the last time you sat down after dinner and did nothing or read a book or watched TV? And nobody did. We just like on this. I've actually introduced sitting down and reading with my kids after dinner, and it's lovely now, I tell you. Anyway, so yes, it's using food as false energy and false comfort because you are not managing the amount of hours you've got in the day. And you can turn around and say to me, but that's not fair. I've got this, this, and this, and this to do. And it's like, yeah, but there is no free hall pass from life, So it's about saying to yourself, what else am I not allowing myself? And I find that people there's a whole range of things they're not allowing themselves.
Yes.
So is it like a proper movie you want to watch, or is it a bath? Is it having, what else? I think maybe it's a case of making a list, maybe being accountable. I mean, you've got a lot of people taking part in your Facebook group. You could have somebody say, tonight at 10 o'clock, I commit to watch I've got Netflix. They've got loads of episodes of Friends on Netflix. I don't know if you've got it in America, but because we don't have all the same. Anyway, for me, if I was in her position, there's some really funny episodes that I haven't watched for years. So I am making a plan. 10 o'clock tonight, that's my treat. I'm going to put my feet up. I'm going to maybe even get under the duvet, and there's all these other things you can do. And then afterwards, I'm going to post here that I've done that. And then you'll get somebody giving you congratulations. And it's always good if you can connect with somebody else. That's why the check-ins are so successful with clients, because they just want to know someone cares. And someone cares enough to go, have you done this today?
Yeah, because when you're in the midst of a failure, or when you're in the midst of the throes of you don't want to talk about it until you're over it. Like when you're binging, or you're not eating the way you want to, or whatever your plan is, or whatever you're trying to do, and it's not working. You won't come in and talk about it until you're over it, when really you need to, and it's really hard to do that. I think I shouldn't say it's a male thing, but I think it's more male than anything else. We don't like to show that you're weak.
I don't think anybody does.
Yeah.
No, it's tough.
But
So
I tell you what, it's amazing when you can say, you've got a lovely safe space in this group. Everyone listening, I shouldn't, just from the conversations I've seen going on, people know they can say, look, this is really hard, but I've done it. And then, the thing is, we all love somebody who's struggled, but they've got to the finishing line. And even if they've only got 80% of the way there, they will still get support. So I think there's an awful lot of non-edible sources of comfort that people are not allowing themselves. And I would ask, make a list. List.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I started introducing baths again into my life, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh. And I still have the time to do everything, even though I made that commitment to myself. But you also came and brought us a lovely little win for this episode, for us to try and experiment.
Oh,
yeah. So one of the things I did with you, Emily, I do with my clients, is slow eating games. Slow eating is phenomenally important, and it's really, really hard. Just slow down and chew 30 times. It's like, I'll have an axe in my head because I want to kill myself. It's so boring. So I made up all these games. So this is one of the games, right? What you're going to do is I need to get my timer up, actually.
And we have food for us.
Have food. So what you're both going to do, when I can get my timer up, let me go. Let's go. Let's explain it while I'm getting egg timer up. So what you're going to do, when I say, you're both going to put one thing in your mouth and eat it, and you are going to guess how long a minute is. And what you're going to do is, when you think a minute is up, you are then going to put another piece of food in your mouth, okay? And then I'll tell you why this is useful afterwards. I think that's probably the best thing. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just watch you, and are you ready, steady, go?
And for those listening to the podcast, John and I both have nice, soft, squishy things so that it's not too crunchy in anyone's ear.
Okay, so just try and be quiet, because I just want you to guess and just focus, okay?
Yeah, Emily, shush.
If we can just have some quiet, everybody can just meditate.
It's got to be a minute, right?
Just put next thing when you think a minute is up.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Okay, right.
For the audio listeners, we cut out a lot.
So, John, you're about 2 seconds under. And Emily, you were 5 seconds over. So that was good. So the point of this is, like, a traditional piece of advice with slowing down your eating is to basically drill sergeant you and say chew 30 times or something like this. Now, there is a way of slowing down. I quite like it, but I've been doing this for quite a while, so I wouldn't recommend it straight away. It's the 1 minute mouthful, where you would actually have a clock and you'd sit there and you look at the clock and you wait for it to go around from it. Then you put another piece of food in your mouth. I did have one client who loved it, and a lot of people hate it. And also it just makes, you clock watching, it's quite stressful. But what you two did was you were playing a game. You were like, I wonder how long. And in fact, you were just around about the time. And the fact that it was a game and you didn't have anything to live up to, you were just playing around, meant that the point wasn't, you've got to slow down and you don't eat so fast. The point was, I wonder how long I can guess this.
Right. To be honest with you, if I'm going to go out somewhere and eat, and I'm just going to use my own Taco Bell is what we use here, I'll go there and I'll start eating it on the way home. And I never make it home with food.
Now you have a game.
Yeah. Well, the game would be not to go there. But the real game would be, once I started to eat something, is to really, really slow down and try that. Now, when you said put that second thing in your mouth, which was, I had a Dunkin' Munchkin, which I had. Mm-hmm. So the second one I put in there, and I was in 10 seconds, it was gone. It was, and so.
Well, it was funny because when you put yours in there, you're like, it must be a minute. I was like, I guess so. Like, I would have gone longer. Because I remember when I did this with Harriet the first time, she's like, Emily, it's 2 minutes. And I'm like, oh, okay. So when you do it one-on-one, it was like, you don't realize how short a minute is, but also.
Yeah. Two things. The man you have been describing yourself as would have stuck the second one in your mouth after 10 seconds.
Yeah, I wouldn't even been done chewing the first one.
Can you see that you overshot the way that you're describing yourself?
Well, yes, but to be honest with you, I was done eating that Munchkin 30 seconds before I said, okay, it's got to be a minute. No.
When I'm always done eating within 15 sequence. The point is that you wait. The point is, because if you wait, you're not doing this.
Exactly.
The version of this, which I find really it's more fun than this, is you get a sandwich. So say it takes, without thinking and just normally, say it takes somebody 2 minutes to eat a sandwich, right? What you do, you set the timer, you don't look at the timer, and then you go, right, I'm going to see if I can make this last 3 minutes. And then you cut it up and you're guessing. And I usually find everyone who does that, they always overshoot it. So there you go, John. There's one thing for you. If it feels 3 minutes feels too long to wait, then just bring it down. Bring your level of challenge down to where it is a challenge, but it's doable. Because once you've succeeded in that, you feel awesome and you just go up a bit and a bit and a bit and a bit.
And that probably increases one of those fun chemicals in your brain whenever you kind of win the game.
Yeah, I don't think there's one for playing, but probably dopamine, I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, I think it also gives your body your mind a chance to catch up to fullness. In other words, you're jamming so much food in your yap, and then by the time your mind says you're full, you're stuffed-icated, you're Thanksgiving full. So it's, that kind of slows down, and I think it actually works. I think also as someone, we've always had timed eating. So in other words, in school, you had 20 minutes for lunch. Mm-hmm. So you had to immediately get your lunch down. In work, you had a half an hour to go get something to eat. So then you had to get to wherever your lunch was and then eat and quick eat it and then have some time. So you kind of just wolf down your food. And I guess the same thing as dinner now. I don't think anybody I shouldn't say anybody. Most of us, I don't sit at a kitchen table and eat. I go and sit in front of the TV and I just sit there and eat while I'm watching TV. And then sometimes, I'm going to say, even if I've had, let's say I went out and got some food delivered in or something like that. And I say, did they short me one? Wasn't there more than, I think so you don't even remember eating that many. You're looking for another one because I couldn't have eaten 3 of those already, did I? Sure enough, you have.
I've got time for a very quick story. Mark David tells this in his book. I think it's The Slow Down Diet. He had this client and this guy couldn't stop eating junk food, McDonald's in lunch hour. And Mark David tried all these things to stop and it's just, no. And so he said to him, okay, what I want you to do, get your McDonald's, because you're refusing to not do that. And then I want you to pull over, go and sit in the car park. And I want you to take... I can't remember how long he gave him, just to eat it slowly. And what the guy discovered through doing this is he actually really didn't like McDonald's because he'd taken the time to eat it. And I had that experience with crackers. I thought, why am I eating these? This is like cardboard. So stopped wanting to eat crackers. It was amazing.
Yeah, once you take the time to actually sit down and taste it and enjoy it. Yeah, I love that. So We do have to run, but before we go, we're going to do our Winning Wednesday. Harriet, you're welcome to stick around and talk about your win this week if you want, and then we're going to go into our weigh-in.
My win is I didn't weigh myself at all.
Yay!
There you go. Hang on, wait a minute. I'll give you one. Here we go.
Sorry, I'm the anti-weigh-in club in there.
Fine. No, that's wonderful. No, because everybody does it differently. So.
All right, well, hang on. You know what that means.
Winning Wednesday. Winning Wednesday. Winning Wednesday. Winning Wednesday. Winning Wednesday.
I did it, guys. I did the Winning Wednesday thing this week, finally. I made our little drop there. So our Winning Wednesdays this week. Victoria, my body feels a bit easier somehow. Hard to explain. So that's great.
Deborah, she's down another half, and my work pants are finally feeling a little roomier.
Oh, nice. Brandy says, really want to lose 4 pounds this week. That would break me out of the 300s and bring my weight loss amount to 20 pounds. That's great.
That is good. Elaine says, I have not lost an ounce in 2 weeks, but somehow everyone around me seems to be noticing and or commenting about my weight that I have lost. A reminder that the scale is not the only indicator of progress. Which is absolutely true.
Amen.
Yes.
Kelly, I've been regularly food journaling no matter what I have eaten, even if I don't want to admit it to myself.
That's true, but yourself knows that you've eaten it, so you might as well just come clean.
But it's funny, you have that sort of fight with yourself of, okay, it's just one, so I'm not going to count it in a weird way, but your body counts it even if you don't count it.
Sure does. Elizabeth, I started working out again, although I went up in weight. Mixed feelings. Well, because when you start to gain weight, muscle weighs more than fat, and if you're building muscle, you're going to transform that. So you might actually, if you put more muscle on, you might actually gain weight. The scale is just a measure of mass. It's not a measure of fat.
It takes up less room.
Yes.
Exactly.
Harriet can probably speak to this too. If you go up in weight, it's probably your body being like, oh no, what's going on? Or what are you doing to me? You're changing on me.
It could be inflammation. You could be holding water. And we all know what that does.
I think the body will change as it needs to. It's much more adaptable than people's minds. And it's another great reason not to weigh yourself regularly if you must.
Yeah.
I stopped. I get on the scale once, and it's right before we record.
Yeah.
So I'm either in a good mood or a bad mood, but what I understand.
Brendan says that moment when you realize that you need to put another hole in it or get a smaller belt.
Yeah.
Yay.
Now there you go. That is fantastic. Annette, the 12K thousands daily
Thanks,
step.
Annette.
Thank you. I have been doing help me strengthen my knees tremendously to the point where I've actually managed to get on the ski slopes this week. Wow. And have a little ski. Not something I would have possibly been able to do at Christmas. So there you go.
That's so great. Brooklyn, 1 full week of IF. I've already gone from being a breakfast junkie, as in the minute I wake up, I start grazing, to delaying to 10 a.m. or so in a 16F intermittent fasting routine and not missing all that extra morning food. I'm sleeping better at night too. I found that too. I sleep really well because of intermittent fasting.
Really? Not me. I don't know why. I'm having problems with insomnia, but
now I do. I not at first.
Oh, okay. And then Deborah says, I can see the loss in my face. Yes.
Yay!
And I can see the loss in Emily's face, too. I can see in Emily's face, there's a huge, huge difference in her face.
I'm finally starting to see it. I'm finally starting to. So, Harriet, thank you so much for coming on the show. We had such a blast with you.
It was fun. Yeah, it's great.
And for people who want to get in touch with you and learn more about you, where do you want to send them?
Well, they could either, wherever they get their podcasts, the Eating Coach podcast is the best place, really. But my website is theshiftinside.com. So either of those, find out about me. Yeah.
And we'll have those links in the show notes. So if you want more information about Harriet, all you have to do is either click on your show note art in the podcast app you're listening to, swipe up, swipe left. You'll find the show notes there and click on those links. All right. Thank you so much, Harriet. All right. God, that was so good. I'm so glad that we got Harriet on the show.
I know. Now I am going definitely. First of all, I've been listening to the wrong podcast. There's another Eating Coach podcast out there. I didn't know it was her. So so now I have to go back and listen to that one. And I'm definitely contacting her.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
Speaking my language.
Also, look through her blog. She has so much good stuff on her blog, just free resources. She actually has a blog post with more games like the ones that we played. All right, let's do this, John.
Ladies and gentlemen, now is the time for the moment you have all been waiting for. It's time for the weigh-in.
Oh boy. Oh, it's an odd week. Okay. I'm so excited about my weigh-in this week. It's ridiculous. Okay. So I am down 2 pounds. And the thing is, I have a new second number.
That's fantastic.
Oh, happy. In fact, I'm down 2 pounds, but I rounded up for my weight. My weight ends in a 9.8. And I saw that the other day and I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. And then I got on the scale today and it was like 9.4 and then switched to 9.8. I'm like, I don't care. It's still, there's still a 9. There's a 9.
That's great. That is fantastic. I am down a pound. So, but again, this week I haven't done very well. I've had issues with, and I think it's because of being tired and trying to do too much and staying up too late. It really does make a difference for me now. Before I would power through and just not sleep, and I can't do that anymore. I need at least 6 hours. If I try to do anything less than 6 hours, like stay up until 3:30 and then get up at 8, I'm horrible the next day. I'm just can't do anything, can't think straight, make so many mistakes. And all I'm trying to do is go back to sleep again. So that really did fuel some eating disorders for me. And then here's the funny thing. We had, what was I watching? I guess it was the Super Bowl. Yes, it was the Super Bowl we were watching last week. And it was halftime, and the halftime was boring. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go run out and get something to eat. So instead, what I did was I called Samantha, and I was talking to her, and I said, please talk me out of going to Taco Bell or McDonald's or something. And she said to me, she started talking to me, and she goes, hey, did you edit Hate the Wait? And I'm like, oh, my God. So then I had to jump off and then edit the show real quick. And to be quite honest with you, I waited a little while, and it passed, and I actually did not go out and binge or go off plan because it was outside. It was everything. It was everything wrong. So that was kind of cool.
That's great.
Yes.
Well, everyone, we hope you enjoyed Harriet on the show. Again, all those links that Harriet talked about will be in the show notes. Please check them. Please check her out. She's in the group as well. I don't want people to bombard her and ask for free coaching, but she's in the group.
That's my job.
But I hope everyone enjoyed having her on.
Yes, and we are up to 162 members over in the Hate to Wait discussion group on Facebook, and you can easily find that and become one of our members by going to hatetowait.com/Facebook. All right, Emily, had a lot of fun today. Now I have to go to Harriet's website, so I have things to do. All right, see you next week.